Senator Chamberlain appropriately acknowledged the great contributions of staff. I'd like to reiterate that, and specifically first to the amazing trio in nonpartisan research. Anne-Marie Lewis in her 25th year. Congratulations, Anne-Marie. That's my 25th as well. To Jenna Hoffer and to Betsy Helseth. You're an awesome team. And also to the reviser, the E12 reviser, Cassie McGinnis. They're working 24/7 on these amendments, and it's been throughout the session, throughout holiday, etc., in a bipartisan way. Thank you. To Judy Donovan, who works very hard in putting together the meeting and getting a hold of us. Thank you for treating us fairly. To Gregory Marcus, the committee administrator, we appreciate that too, and I have always had a prompt response on inquiries. Thank you, Greg. To Ed Cook, who's been here a number of years as well, and I recognize you're doing your job. We may see things differently, but I respect that we can at least be upfront about things. And also to Dana Helling. Dana has been with us also nearly 25 years. She just returned from her second vaccine. Like all of us here, we're passionate about this issue, but we know how important it is to have our staff involvement. So on behalf of all of us, thank you, staff. And thank you to members. This is actually the first time this session that I've been in the same setting as the other Dems on the committee. It's the first time. It's been surreal. And there's still some members on the entire committee I have not met yet. Senator Coleman, who I wish the very best in her journey right now. But we are all focused on the same issue that Senator Chamberlain. Of course we all want to help kids. We want to provide hope and relief. But there can be different points of emphasis, particularly as it relates to resources. First and foremost, on the bill, the funding is not adequate. The formula has nothing. Nothing is in the formula. So what does that mean? Now, Senator Chamberlain did mention several programs, and we support those. The governor supports many of those. But beyond this, we need to provide some additional formula. The governor in his Due North program has over $700 million for education in the biennium, and on the formula, $300 million. The House upset with $400 million. And here, there's nothing. So what's the consequence? The consequence will be budget cuts. Specifically, $365 million is what's projected for public schools throughout Minnesota. And I have vetted and double-checked any fact here through our nonpartisan research. And this is based on projected inflation. And this, in fact, it was just reviewed by Senator Rosen's committee, and I believe Eric Nauman had done some research as to what the projection is. There are costs to districts, just like we personally have costs related to inflation, or a business, or any plan. School districts need to plan. They're doing their budgets. And if there is not an increase in formula, and there's none here, there will be cuts. Members, I hope you've talked to your local school boards, to parents, to teachers. Have you asked them, what is the impact with no formula? In fact, if you haven't, text them, give them a call right now. I do have information for several districts. I'm not going to ask you all to yield, but I'm very appreciative that one organization did do a survey. It was the Minnesota Association of School Business Officials, this very nonpartisan group. And they worked with the Minnesota School Boards Association, the Association of Metro School Districts, the school administrators, the Rural Education Association, as well as Schools for Equity and Education. And by the way, they do support different provisions in the bill, but they want additional formula. What's the impact? Well, in your districts, I'm sure you know, Anoka-Hennepin projects $14 million. Let's look at some rural districts. Let's go up north. Thief River Falls in Princeton, each projecting a shortfall of $2 million with no formula. Robbinsdale cuts $4.4 million. St. Cloud, $3 million. Bemidji, I believe it's over $5 million, and they're facing statutory operating debt in Bemidji. No formula? Mankato, $7 million. I know the figures in my district, and they're saying we need assistance in the formula, and they support Governor Walz's Due North budget plan. This provides relief. This provides the hope that Senator Chamberlain made reference in his initial comments. That plan, which Senator Chamberlain did put in as on request, contains several provisions. And as I noted, it has money for formula. It's going to mean less of a budget cut. In fact, in some cases, they will have additional surplus. We would provide additional money, by the way, for summer education, and that was a part of Due North. Senator Chamberlain mentioned meeting the need for social, emotional skills, for mental health. And there are provisions that do that in the biennium, but more is needed. Questions were raised as to why not all the students have gone back to school, and somehow blaming Governor Walz. Do you know some students have not returned because they fear discrimination? Have you read some of the stories just out? And Senator Hura's reminded the discrimination that Asians have felt, being taunted and teased and discriminated. And you're saying, why aren't you back in school? Talk to them. What type of an emotional scar when a former president blames it on their ethnicity? There's a lot to unpack here in terms of the recovery from COVID, and additional funds are needed for summer school as well, and we supported that, and the House sent us over it. More funds are needed. We know we don't have the budget targets to do that. Right now, let's hope we'll seize that opportunity later. At the close of Senator Chamberlain's remarks, there was reference made to the education savings account being supported by parents. And in committee, it was referenced, this is for parents. Yes, there are some parents that would want this, but this will siphon $250 million, $250 million from public schools by 2025. That's line 22 on the spreadsheet, if you want to look at it, and I've re-verified it again from nonpartisan. I don't think that meets our obligation in Article 13, Sections 1 or 2 in the Constitution, and we're going to have more discussion on this. But on the issue of parents, we support parents, students, we all do, but we have a different take on this provision. But I thought, what does the largest parent organization have to say about this? Anyone know who that organization might be? Of course, it's the Minnesota PTA. And I bet some of you may have been members at one point or had parents or someone involved. These are the unsung volunteers, heroes, raising funds in the schools and partners. And I called them and I said, somewhat facetiously, but I called their president and said, are you guys parents? Do you have a position on this issue? And in fact, I set up a conference call last Sunday just to get a perception check. How does the largest parent organization in Minnesota feel about the proposed ESA program? They are opposed, okay? Yes, I have an officer, and that's their leadership in Maplewood, but there's over 200 chapters in Minnesota, hundreds and hundreds of members, and you can explain your vote to them either way as to siphoning $250 million from public schools. We have different points of view. A few terse quotes that they agreed to in a letter. Do you support ESAs? No. Potentially, the PTA says this could become the nation's largest school voucher proposal. It's a significant step backward. It violates the spirit of public education in several ways. Majority of parents oppose this provision. I'll reiterate, there's portions of this, as acknowledged by Senator Chamberlain, that we support, and let's build on that. And we are grateful that those are included, but we can do much more. And we have to meet the moment. The bill does have provisions, as I have said, thank you, on teachers of color, but we can do more. We can seize the moment in the reckoning with racial justice and inequity and put in a more program dollar. We can address Indian education and other proposals that are needed now, and we'll have a chance to do that shortly. We are strongly opposed to a provision which discriminates against transgender students in athletics. We'll discuss that more shortly. Surprisingly, one provision that we thought was going to go in, it had bipartisan support. It would have allowed school districts, school boards, locally elected, 333 of them around the state, you know them, they represent the same people we do. They are asking for the ability to approve an already authorized operating levy that's been approved by the voters if there's no tax increase. They all pass, but it takes a great deal of effort in this renewal. It siphons unnecessary energy where it could be better used. Many organizations, including the PTA, are asking for this. Senator Rest has championed this effort. I've had the bill in. There's bipartisan support, and maybe the timing wasn't quite right, but we strongly support including this provision at the local, and this would be local control. There's other items as well. But one item that I hope gets corrected in conference committee had to do with museums. Let's all agree that museums provide a wonderful opportunity to expand one's curiosity, their mind, especially the hands-on experience and the great children's museums we have in our state. We do have funding for various museums. And thank you, Senator Rosen, for adding Mankato a couple of days ago. But the Bloomington Works Museum is not included in the base for an additional $50,000. I say, why not? Let's at least, I understand the argument that maybe this should all be legacy in terms of what others have said, but if we're doing it for these other museums, why not Bloomington, the Works? Senator Wickland, she knows the value of this, of providing hands-on experience, robotic, the whole STEM education. She's an electrical engineer. She knows how these children's museums can inspire students. Certainly Senator Ann Stewart Johnson is another engineer. We had 2 engineers here. They're both women. They know what these children's museums can do. So $50,000 each year, the biennium, out of $20 billion, but we couldn't find room for Bloomington Works. Let's hope it can get resolved. So members, there are provisions we support, but the significant problem we have is that it underperforms for needed funds. We can do better. Governor Walz has an inspirational proposal which he pays for, which we support, that will help the districts in what they're asking for. So we're not going to have these budget cuts. And further, we oppose siphoning needed public school dollars from the public school system, and so does the PTA. So let's work together, and maybe we can make some improvements right now. Thank you, Mr. President.